round 2 of using my new video editing software. Gonna do some more intricate things in this video, but still getting my feet wet, so I won't be going too all out. Alright, so I just want to make hopefully a quick video talking about Mark Kermode's review of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Mark Kermode is a critic whose sentiments run very parallel to my own. I try not to make too many movie videos about movies. I'm trying to be more serious, talk more about politics and theology and grown-up stuff. But I really enjoy kind of pulpy B movies and overanalyzing them and treating them like high art. And Mark Kermode is a trailblazer for that. Brad Jones of the Cinema Snob has an encyclopedic knowledge of those kind of movies, but freely admits they're trash and doesn't really delve into themes or anything like that. Mark Kermode is a PhD in English literature, and he will treat every single one of those like they're Dickens, or at least like they're intending to be as thematically charged, perhaps, as the greatest works of literature. Uh, and I appreciate that. It's actually something I appreciate about the kind of focus on the family attitude towards movies as well. As easy as it is to ridicule that, I kind of appreciate how they treat every movie like it has a message and a theme. Because they do, whether they intend to or not. Father Robert Barron, of course, does this too. Now, Mark Kermode is a former communist, and he clearly still has leftist sympathies, which you can tell if you watch his review of the Sex and the City movies, where his indignation at the bourgeois indulgence of those films just seeps through to the point where he starts singing the International. And he said before that everything he learned about politics he knows from the Planet of the Apes films, that he watched them at a tender age. And of course, the first film was actually written by a screenwriter who also wrote a film called Salt of the Earth, using a story, of course, by Rod Serling. Rod Serling's the one who came up with the whole twist at the end of the Planet of the Apes film. Check out Rod Serling's original script, by the way. It's pretty good. It's different, but of course it was edited by a guy who had written the script for a film called Salt of the Earth, who I believe also was blacklisted in the McCarthy hearings for his communist sympathies. So, and of course Sammy Davis, I should say. Sammy Davis once said to the screenwriter and or was it the director? But he said that no film had ever done kind of a better job of depicting civil rights and the black struggle for freedom and for advancement than the Planet of the Apes films. The Planet of the Apes movies have a very clear kind of parallel to the Black Power movement, to the Black Panther movement. The original series does, anyways. So Mark Kermode obviously sees these movies as very political. They mean a lot to him. I like all the Planet of the Apes movies, and I have addressed them in another video. And I want to make a point. I saw some comments on my last review of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes saying, "Oh, the original Planet of the Apes movie is so anti-religious." Yes, the first two Planet of the Apes films are very anti-religious. The third and fourth ones are the ones that change. That's where they have a Catholic character who treats the apes well, who treats the chimpanzees, who treats Zeta and Cornelius really well. That inspires them to want to build a civilization where humans aren't all oppressed because there are good humans. That role is played by James Franco in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the character of Will. He is the noble human character, as is the John Lithgow character, who inspires Caesar to want to treat the humans with more kindness and respect. And in this film, we also have those characters. We also have human characters who are meant to be sympathetic, who are kind to the apes, who serve as a counterbalance to those humans who are just wretched to the apes, who are just outright jerks to the apes. And that latter category of humans are the ones who inspire certain apes, such as Koba or Aldo in the original series, to want to be oppressive and suppressive towards the humans. In this film, the character is Malcolm. Malcolm is the one who's trying to be the kind of set the good example, who's trying to be reasonable and trying to kind of reach conciliation with the apes. And his wife, Ellie. Ellie is a nurse, and both of their spouses were killed in the simian flu, which has devastated the Earth. Ellie is now serving as the stepmother to Malcolm's child, Alexander, his bright, artistic, voracious reader, a boy named Alexander. I think it's interesting, by the way, the apes are led by a guy named Caesar, and the son of Malcolm is named Alexander. That's kind of intriguing to me. Maybe a little bit of significance. Maybe in the next movie, Alexander will be the leader of the humans. He'll be the new Alexander the Great, leading the new human empire. Who knows? We'll see. But the point is that they serve that role in this film that the original Planet of the Apes movie had with the Catholic character, the guy who owns the traveling circus. and that's the point at which those movies become pro-religion, when you have the lawgiver who is an orangutan who actually like wants humans to be treated well, who built a society, who lays down the rules for a society, writes the sacred scrolls for a society where there'll be harmony between the apes and the humans. So it is not the entirety of the original series goes from being anti-religious to, in a way, pro-religious, or at least having religious themes. Now, point of, and by the way, Mark Kermode is himself a practicing Anglican, which is interesting, although he's agnostic about whether demon possession can actually happen, even though The Exorcist is his favorite movie. Actually, I think he said he doesn't believe. I think in his review for Requiem, he says he doesn't believe demon possession actually happens. But anyways, the point is he has a glowing review, for the most part, glowing review of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes as well, but he has a few criticisms of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I think are really intriguing. And I think the reason why he has at least one of those criticisms is because he expects it to have. These movies are meaningful to him because of their political significance. And I think he feels like they're betrayed in this film, and here's how. Here's the clip where he explains that.
I do have some reservations. One of them is that there are the female roles are not great, and certainly as the action sequences increase, the kind of anguished mothers tend to sort of fall by the wayside, and I think that is a problem. And there's not really much of an excuse for that problem. It doesn't have to be that way. Funnily enough, if you look at the original Planet of the Apes sequence, it wasn't necessarily true of all those films.
Okay, here's what I think's going on. Mark Kermode expects these movies, or wants these movies. It's better way. He wants these movies. Thinks the precedent for these movies is to be about revolution, societal upheaval. But these movies are actually about building a new society. They're more about what society actually is. Is it a society based on forgiveness? What is it? What order does it follow? What dictates what the laws are? Is there a natural law, let's say, that human or ape law has to conform to? Now that's an interesting question, and worth delving into. Let's say. So that's a different. It's going on a different angle than the original films. So the original films then could be seen to have possibly a feminist undercurrent. That would be why maybe Sita plays such a strong role in them. The third movie has her like emceeing like a feminist event, like a dinner. That's a pretty funny scene actually. And saying, we should break out of the kitchen. We should be using more than just our hands and our paws or whatever. Like it's a funny scene. In this film, it's about society, though, not social upheaval. And if you're going to talk about society, what you have to do is talk about the family. The emotional core, the kind of moral core of the human society, is this rebuilt family. Malcolm and Ellie and Alexander. And they've managed to overcome their grief, overcome the suffering that's been inflicted by the simian flu and the loss of their families by finding each other. By, in a way, kind of almost forgiving the world, trying to surmount what's happened to them, the tragedy they've undergone, by loving each other. Family is a great way of doing this. Family is a great kind of mini society where you can learn to love and give yourself for others and kind of overcome yourself, overcome your own kind of selfishness and your own kind of griefs and sadnesses. It pulls you out of yourself. It's kind of the first social obligation you have, and it teaches you social obligation. And in the same kind of way, paralleling that, the monarchy of the ape society is Caesar and his wife Cornelia and their child Blue Eyes, and there's another child as well. The healthy family there is kind of this. It symbolizes the healthy ape society that could exist. Koba, on the other hand, has a son, but when that son won't kill a human in cold blood, he kills his son in cold blood. This is the difference between Koba and Caesar, or at least it's emblematic of them. Koba's hatred of humans is so deep that it even overrides his love for his own family. Healthy families show healthy people. They show healthy minds, healthy rationality. So it's very important then that you have these two families. This is not really a feminist movie in that sense, although what's interesting is one of the reasons why Caesar chooses to accept Malcolm, chooses to befriend Malcolm, is because Cornelia is very sick. Ellie, Malcolm's wife, this human character, is a nurse. Now, I can already sort of see people kind of saying, oh, see, that's the major female role in this movie is like a nurturing, caring role, how sexist and regressive of the movie. Because showing women as like caregivers who save lives is not, I don't know, unless they're like warriors who are killing people, that's not pro-woman, I guess. Um, and also, bearing life and bringing new life into the world is also not enough of a thing to celebrate. They also have to be murdering people, or else it's not feminist. But Ellie is the one who actually heals Cornelia. She's the one who uses her medical training to save her, and that's when Caesar starts to kind of accept them as humans, like accept that humans can be good, really accept. I mean, he already knows Will, so he's already more sympathetic than other apes might be. But this is when he's really ready to embrace them as friends. Probably what triggers Koba's betrayal of him. So, what's important here is not that, in my opinion, when Kermode says, "Oh, there's not strong women characters in it," or at least the female characters kind of drop out when the action scenes happen, that's because this is more a movie about family than it is about revolution. It's about the core of society. It's about what makes a healthy society, how to avoid having a society that will fall apart. And family is what's important there. And that's for the fact that the women aren't at the forefront of the battle, and that's how the movie ends. It ends with a big, bloody, fiery battle. Well, this is an interesting point too. In a healthy society, how much are the women fighting? Now that's that's very touchy, right? But I think the idea here is that because of this healthy family, the men are the ones who can go out and defend the family. I don't know if that's what the movie was going for, but that certainly was depicted. The women are the healthy caregivers, the ones who... And again, Ellie's a very strong character. I mean, she's stronger, certainly emotionally, than a lot of the men are. The men are the ones, by the way, who are... In both of these, it's only the men who are... who can't forgive. In the case of the humans, it's a human who shoots an ape in cold blood and has no sympathy for the apes because of the simian flu. And it's Koba, who's a male, who engineers the whole war basically against the humans. So the women in this are definitely depicted as the most forgiving ones. And forgiveness is kind of the foundation of society in these movies. It's what these movies are putting forward as the only possible solution. And also what the original movies put forward. It can only be forgiveness that will avoid the situation that we see when Charlton Heston lands on the Planet of the Apes. The only way we can keep that from happening, because the twist of the original Planet of the Apes movie, I can't emphasize this enough, the twist is not that it's Earth the whole time. That's not what the twist is in the original. Or it's not the only twist. The twist is Dr. Zaius doesn't want humans to be given any freedom and only wants them to be oppressed because humans were awful and can't be trusted with their own freedom. And he's right. That's the twist. The twist is that Charlton Heston, the character of Taylor, who starts the movie off as a cynic, who doesn't like people, doesn't like humans, and then in the movie, the irony is that he's put in the position of defending humanity. But at the end, his initial cynicism is justified. When he sees the Statue of Liberty destroyed and falls to his knees and says, "God damn them all to hell," which Charlton Heston, who was a devout Christian, said is not swearing. He's literally asking God to condemn them to hell. Is that he was right. The humans are awful. And Dr. Zaius, who's the Grand Inquisitor of the story, just like the Grand Inquisitor tells Jesus you cannot trust people with their free will, you have to oppress them for their own good. Dr. Zaius is the Grand Inquisitor of this story, who's... and he's right. He's vindicated. Humans shouldn't be trusted. The only way to avoid that society happening, the Planet of the Apes society, is if there can be forgiveness on both sides. Particularly forgiveness of the apes towards the humans. And that's a trait that the women seem to exemplify in this movie. So... he says they drop out of the movie when the action starts. Well, the action sequence we're not supposed to sympathize with. That action sequence ends with humans blowing up, essentially destroying their own society, or planting the seeds of their own destruction. There's no reason why, if you want women to be portrayed positively, you should want them to be involved in that. The role women play are as the strong voices of reason in this film, and also the ones who are maternal, and I don't see anything wrong with that, because because of the fact that they're maternal, Ellie's parenting of Alexander, who's not her biological son, is what's making Alexander a smarter, brighter boy who can develop a friendship with the orangutan Maurice, for example. He writes him a little like comic book kind of. He shows him his drawings and so on. That is perfectly empowering, I'd say. So I don't think that's a valid criticism from Dr. Kermode. Although I see why he makes it, and the very fact that he does make it shows that he has he wants this movie to be something other than what it is. And that's intriguing. And he makes another criticism I'm just going to address briefly as well.
Also, there's a certain amount of loss of will in enabling the apes to talk as much as they do. I mean, obviously, the whole thing about Caesar saying no, which dates right back to the original Planet of the Apes sequence, just using one word was really, really shocking. What happens at the beginning of this film is that we see the apes essentially communicating through sign language. As the drama increases, they start to talk more and more, and it's clear that there's a tension between what you'd actually like them to do, which is to be talking in sign language, because why would they need to be talking? And talking because that's what the cinema demands. In fact, one of the writers has talked about that as very specifically a conflict they think they found their way through. I think as the drama goes on, it relies too much on the apes talking. I was much happier, to be honest, when they were communicating through sign language. But these are essentially minor reservations.
It seems to me Dr. Kermode misses why they're talking more, though. It actually plays a role to the plot and is significant to the theme of the movie, I think. I went to see this movie with my girlfriend, and my girlfriend is an elementary teacher. She also teaches Filipino. She's Filipino herself, and speaks several languages. And she is the one who observed to me that it seemed like the apes were using longer and more complex sentences the more they spent time with humans. And this is kind of the whole point. The more the apes interact with humans, and indeed the more they converse with them, and the more friendly they get with them, the more like humans they become, for better or for worse. And that involves speaking longer, more complex sentences, with more words, longer words, pronouncing them maybe even more clearly. Now, this is how things work in reality, right? I mean, this is how children learn to speak. This is how, if you're learning a second language, it becomes more easy for you to speak because you're interacting with other people. That's what helps you get comfortable with the syntax and sentence structures and so on. So that, on one level, just makes the movie more realistic. It makes it more plausible. Like, how would the apes have gotten from guttural utterances, shouting the word no, shouting the word go at the beginning of this movie, to what we see in either the Tim Burton film or the original Planet of the Apes sequence, where they're speaking fluent English, and presumably other languages too. Well, it makes sense that they would have been talking to humans. They would have had to spend a lot of time conversing in that language in order to get so comfortable with it and so fluent with it. But it also proves the fact that they get more civilized the more they talk with humans, the more they talk with maybe their natural enemies. I've compared in the previous film, the apes to the barbarians and the humans to Rome, and read Hilaire Belloc, read Gibbon, read Christopher Dawson. The barbarians weren't trying to overthrow the Romans and replace it with their own empire. They wanted to be Romans. They wanted to speak Latin. They wanted to be in charge of its institutions. Which is different than other attempts to overthrow empires. This is the similar thing. The apes don't want to just overthrow the humans and replace it with ape stuff. Their civilization will be essentially inherited from the human civilization. So this is important too. Because once the humans are gone, or at least significantly reduced, they'll be the ones carrying on our institutions. And will that be for good or for ill? How will they govern them? How would you say? How will they embody the principles we say that we live by? That is an intriguing thing that the movie leaves open at the end of it. I'm curious what the next movie, and I think this movie's doing well, so they will probably make another one, how it will follow those themes through. It was interesting that Kermode noticed this, but I think he missed the significance of it, just like he did with The Point About Women. Anyways, go check out his review, though. He has 3 movies on the Planet of the Apes films. Check them out. They're all good. And I recommend him in general. He's a very fascinating critic. But that's where I disagree with him, and this is where I think he missed the points of the movie, where the movie was making some very good and interesting points. Thanks very much for watching. I hopefully edited this video more or less correctly. Hopefully it's easy and fluid enough to watch. Take care. See you soon.